welcome to the Catholic Forge, a conversational podcast where we gather to explore our Catholic faith and discuss how it forms our lives. All are welcome to join in this conversation and journey. Thank you for listening.
Hey everyone, welcome to the show. This is Eric in Missouri.
This is Ben, back in Kentucky.
You're back in Kentucky.
Yeah. Back.
But you've been away.
From Kentucky.
And this is John in Illinois. Sorry I had to wait so long. I was waiting for the applause to die down.
Oh yes, our studio audience, please. We borrowed the audience from Seinfeld from the 90s.
I knew you were going to say Seinfeld. Yes. I knew it. I almost said it over you, and I thought that'd be rude. And then it came out, and I wish I had said it over. I was going to say Seinfeld.
Well, Ben, glad to have you back, man, and a great topic here to discuss. And we were just discussing in the pre-show while you were away.
Yeah.
The Catholic Forge picked up a sponsor, and that sponsor is Common Sense Coffee. Common Sense Coffee, of course, is a small batch artisan coffee roastery based out of Independence, Missouri. That is where the Lewis and Clark Trail proper began. Now, small batch means that your order is crafted to your personal and particular taste. I'm sitting here, in fact, drinking Malawi double A in a light medium roast, and that's a custom profile that Zach put together for me. And you can enjoy it too. As a Catholic Forge listener, you can save $1 off of every order by simply typing in the code CFORGE in the comments and questions section of the order form. So thanks to Common Coffee for their sponsorship. Thanks to you for enjoying it. Common Sense Coffee, it's better for you than manna in the desert. Now, just a quick caveat.
Whoa, wait a minute. Are we going with that, really? I'm not sure that I can assent to that.
Jesus said your ancestors ate the manna in the desert and still they died.
Oh, but the coffee you won't die?
That
We're on thin ground here. It's great coffee. I'm not sure that I can affirm that statement yet, though.
You don't have to.
Okay. Sorry.
Don't trust in manna in the desert, but do trust in some common sense. However, very excited for Zach and for his family. They're making a move. And so for a little while, the coffee production will be down. However, if you still would like to order some, you can still get the discount. It may just be a little while until Zach can complete the order. So everything stays the same, and we're grateful for him sticking with us even during this time of transition for his own family life. But check that out, and thank you very much. Now, as I mentioned, Ben, you've come back for...
Yep.
This, I mean, a lot of layers in this topic. You specifically, though, and you said somewhat, I don't know how you said it, not coincidentally, but maybe, you were reading this book on the topic, and that sort of fired up the conversation and the idea a bit. What did you find?
Yes, well, you want me to tell what the topic is? Did you mention that?
Yeah.
Was I spaced out?
No, I think I missed it too.
I think I was spaced out.
I've been away for a while. I don't know if I was listening.
You forgot how disorganized we were.
I may
Sorry.
have just skipped over. Go ahead, please.
All right. Well, yeah. So, you emailed me and said, "Hey, we were thinking about this idea. You know, we all have daughters. What about this idea of? I think you mentioned it as daughters, and how to help them know their beauty and what true beauty is."
Yes.
And as soon as you mentioned that, I thought, hey, I hadn't actually started reading it yet. What it was, I always have a kind of a book list of books I want to read or that I'm wanting to get to. Mm-hmm. And I had heard of this book called Strong Fathers, Strong Daughters by a doctor named Meg Meeker. And it's been on my list for a while. And I thought, oh, well, this is perfect timing. I'll just bump it up. You know, normally I wouldn't have gotten to this for another 6 months to a year maybe, but in light of that topic idea, I thought I'll go on and start reading it. So I confess I have not gotten to the end of it, but it's been an amazing first half, and already, I mean, way more than I could even begin to talk about, you know, in one episode. So,
Okay.
So yeah, I mean, if we can discuss a little, just the importance, the role, of course, the role of all parents are important for daughters, but the role of, you know, us as fathers having daughters and that father-daughter relationship and kind of helping them grow up in the world we're living in, navigate it, and be the, I mean, I think we can all agree, the virtuous women that we hope they become,
Yeah.
So, go ahead, John.
No, I was just going to affirm what you're saying, that there definitely is a unique relationship with fathers and daughters, and that's bore out by the studies that we read, that the stronger, healthier, more supportive relationship a daughter has with her father, the more poised she is and set up for success in the rest of her life, in her relationships, in her job, in most of what she does. And of course, that's true for mothers too, but we each have our unique character that our relationship gives, and there is a special, unique character that we give to our children as fathers. And so it's a very important thing to be talked about and not to be taken lightly, or just, I find so often in my life, parenting just happens, and that's not acceptable. I've got to take control of my behavior and the actions and make conscious, intentional parenting. That should be the next book we should write. There's all this intentional discipleship and stuff. Intentional parenting, and how important that is as fathers. So just affirm what you were saying there.
No, that's very well said, because parenting, I hadn't thought of it in those words, but it does just happen. And people all the time, I do hear it in these words, people themselves tell me we're just kind of winging it. And, we all do that to an extent. Certain situations come up you haven't dealt with before. And when you're first presented with it, you might have to wing it. But, after that first time, after you know it's going to be an issue in your household, you shouldn't just permanently wing it. You should start figuring out a game plan. And like you said, intentionally, come up with solutions.
One of the things I see too is, our oldest daughter, she just had her 8th birthday. And that's not old, but she was like a baby yesterday, and if I'm waiting for the moment for her to grow up that we can work it out, I'll have missed it, and so it's so important. I look at it. And so, I mean, that would be a place to dive in there. I'm not a daughter. I've never been one. So I interviewed Cecilia and Maria about this before we came on. And I said, Maria, how do you know that you're beautiful? And she smiled and she joked. She said, because I've got beautiful black hair and great eyes and a smile. And I said, is that all that makes you beautiful? And she said, no. She said, I'm kind and I help people, and I'm going to be a nun when I grow up. And I was delighted that her total estimation of her beauty didn't just reside in her physical appearance, but it is important that it was there. We live in a world where that physical appearance is, while it's superficial, it's unfortunately part of our happiness, and so that she has confidence that she's lovable in that sense. That is a good thing, as long as that is not the only sense of beauty that she has.
Yeah, and obviously that means you guys are doing something right, because she's picked that up from living with you and Cecilia, and because kids don't just have that confidence on their own. Well, I'm no psychologist. I'm sure there are some people out there that even if they've never been affirmed in any way are just still like, hey, I'm awesome. I know it. Probably
a much harder proposition. However, I remember we were having a Christmas party at the church a year or so ago, and I think I may have mentioned this before on the show, so sorry to everyone that has to hear the story again. But Maria was there taking a picture with Santa Claus, and I said, Maria, smile. And she sits there and she kind of does this thing with her mouth. I said, smile. And she wouldn't smile. I said, show your teeth. She's just kind of doing this grimace thing.
Yeah.
Right.
And she wouldn't do it. So I took a bunch of pictures. And afterwards I said, Maria, why wouldn't you smile? And she said, I was. I said, but it would have been nice if you had done a big smile. And she said, I don't like my smile. I don't like my teeth.
Oh, man.
And I was just floored. I said, what don't you like about your teeth? But the idea that, she was probably about 6. She had probably been spending time looking at herself in the mirror, comparing herself to other girls. It blew me away that at 6 that this was, I guess that wouldn't come to shock to a woman, but I don't know that I was even self-aware at age 6, but yet my daughter is already doing those things. And so It's so important to be aware that even when we're not saying things, they're collecting that information from the girls at school, from the people around them, from the people they see on TV,
Yeah, that's one of the big things that this book I'm reading talks about is, and this is written by a pediatrician, so she sees besides being a mother herself and having daughters, and then of course she has been a daughter herself, she's got the experience of all these patients that she's seen, of girls, up to 18 years old, and all the, you wouldn't think a pediatrician's office right off the bat, but I'm learning from this book how much pediatricians see such as psychological issues, because a girl might come into a pediatrician's office that's actually suffering from an eating disorder brought on, by deeper psychological issues with their looks and their body image. And she's really stressing that it's not a neutral playing field out there, that the world has an agenda for your daughter. And she's arguing that fathers are the only line of defense between that world's agenda and your daughter. And the world wants your daughter to feel like she doesn't measure up and feel bad about her looks, because somebody who feels bad about their looks is willing to shell out the cash to the people.
Yeah, I was just going to say, to buy the cosmetics, to buy the shoes, to buy the phone or whatever it is, that this thing will make, if I eat this food or drink this Diet Cola, I'll look like that supermodel.
And I had never, I don't want to say conspiracy theorist, but I'm very open to the ideas about how, the hidden agendas of people in power and that kind of thing. But even I hadn't thought of it from that angle when it came to my daughters and their feelings about how they look. I had never thought, oh yeah, these companies definitely stand to profit by my daughter feeling bad about herself, because then she's vulnerable and willing to give them her money to try to improve, her appearance, her confidence, whatever. And it was horrifying when I thought of that. And I mean, I'm glad that at least my eyes have been open to that idea and possibility. I always knew, and I already knew, that instinctively you got to be careful about the magazine covers and whatnot. Girls will compare themselves to what they see, even if they're not buying the magazines, just you in the grocery checkout line and the whole row of magazines there of flawless women.
Yep.
And it is terrifying. I mean, to think of it in that terms, that the world has that agenda, and it's not by accident. But wait, John, is the flip side of what you're saying about intentional parenting. They have an intentional agenda that is very carefully thought out and targeting these little girls. And she mentions in there, so you said Maria's 8, Evie, my oldest, is 6. So she's catching up to that age. I've noticed Evie spending more time in front of the mirror. We send her in to brush her teeth, and it's like, has she even started brushing her? What is she doing? And
yeah, I noticed it with Maria too, and I didn't realize what it was, but she would be sitting in front of the mirror making faces and kind of like cocking her head to the side and like looking at the side, and what she's doing was practicing these faces.
Yeah.
I was stunned to see that.
Eric, Hannah's only 4, right?
She'll be 5 very soon.
So have you started dealing with any of that yet? Is she still too young?
Not much. I mean, she likes it when Tori does her hair up, and she'll say, "Oh, look, it's pretty," but that's because Tori's told her,
right,
"Oh, it looks pretty now," or, we need to try to get this situated in such a way so it looks nice, or whatever it is, or presentable for mass, or whatever the occasion is, school. And so I hear comments like that, but I don't hear anything that draws me to concern or shock. It's like, what did you say? What are you doing in the bathroom?
Yeah.
What's going on? I want to double back quickly, though, just very briefly. Well, it depends on how long he wants to go with it. But John, what did Cecilia say when you quizzed her about this?
She had some real interesting things to say. I said, how did Cecilia's got incredible parents, and her father's he's just a gem. And I said, what did your dad do to help you know that you're beautiful? And she kind of looked at me odd because, and she said, well, he always defended me. And I said, well, what did that do? And what I guess Cecilia had a lot of boys around in her high school career that her father didn't approve of, and he let her know that. Not to talk down to her, but to say you're better than these guys in the sense that you are worth something, you are valuable. So he was imparting dignity and value to her by saying, I want the best guy for you. If you're going to date somebody, he needs to be somebody that respects and honors you. The other thing that he did, which she had mentioned this to me before, and I actually have started doing this too. She said whenever we were watching a movie at home or a TV show, if an inappropriate scene came on, we didn't wait. My dad jumped up. I mean, he stood up right away and he would turn it off or fast forward it. He wanted her to know that was not okay to see women subjected or used in a TV show. And so, I thought that was a really wonderful thing because he was there calling for that dignity. You know what? We're not going to expose ourselves to this. I, as a man, and this was part of what he's doing. He's not only telling her about women's value, he was modeling for her what a man should do. A man shouldn't want to see a woman in a compromising situation, right? Yeah. So he was modeling to her how men should interact with women, and that was to have regard and to have respect for them. And so I thought that was a pretty good thing. So
yeah, that's actually that's such a good thing. That's chapter 5 in the book. Protect her.
Oh, wow.
Protect her and defend her. So the book it's subtitled 10 Secrets Every Father Should Know. So then the chapters correspond with the 10 secrets. And yeah, chapter 5 is defend her. And the author tells stories like that with her own dad, that he was sometimes embarrassingly stern with boys in her life, and that at the time she didn't necessarily appreciate it or respect it, but that it served the purpose it was meant to serve. And now as a grown woman, she has no resentments. I think that's fathers these days are worried about, well, if I'm strict or if I'm firm or, if I drive this boyfriend away because he's no good, it will alienate my relationship with my daughter. And so a lot of fathers these days are too permissive of letting these scumbags around their daughters because that's what their daughter thinks they want at that moment when she's 16 or 17 or whatever. But in fact, this author is saying, don't be discouraged even if your daughter, screams, "I hate you for this" in the moment. She doesn't hate you, and in her heart, and she'll see it very soon in her heart, it actually makes her love you more and respect you more as her father. And she tells stories kind of like what you're talking about, John, that her father always, if she was being brought home by a boy, her father always was there and present. That there was no, dropping her off and her sneaking in the house, and that the boy always had to have contact with her father when he picked her up and when he brought her back home. And I gave that accountability.
Very good. And as you said, that we're not being judgmental of the scumbags that want to date your daughters. We were those scumbags.
We've been them,
we just want them to grow up and be appropriate for your daughter, at the moment. And that's a very important thing too, I think, that you mentioned.
Yeah, and you mentioning that as being those scumbags, I can vividly remember though the fathers that I knew I was going to have to answer to, and the fathers that I knew I wasn't.
Absolutely.
And it, luckily, to defend myself a little bit here, for everyone to hear, luckily I had enough of an internal conscience that I'm not saying I did anything to these other girls, that was disrespectful or wrong, just because I knew their fathers weren't going to hold me accountable.
But you knew who the fathers you could kind of get away with stuff.
Right. Yeah. I knew the ones that didn't care if she came home late, that they were never gonna give me that scary look, And then there were others that, like, the handshake told me, "You are dead. If anything goes wrong, you are dead." I mean, he didn't say that, but just the handshake. In fact, my current father-in-law, he's one of those guys. I know I'm dead. Anything goes wrong, I'm still dead.
That's why Alice turned out so well.
Yeah.
Let's just give thanks for all the moms who talk the dads down from committing murder when their daughters come home crying. Let's just give props for the moms tonight. Bring the Seinfeld track back. Thank you very much. One thing that struck me in these ponderings, all of this meditation, was something I read in a book when Tori and I were engaged. And in the book, it spoke of the husband's need to really be attentive to his wife and to her beauty. And in whatever way, understanding that every relationship is different and you have to work that out, but still finding ways to encourage that, to see her, to speak to her as a person and not an object, all of this. And I looked for the book, my boys, but I cannot find it. In any case, the author made the case of your wife is still that little girl who's 4 years old wearing the princess dress for the first time, right? And she comes into the living room and starts doing twirls. And what does she say? Like every little girl says, "Daddy, look at me." And sure enough, Hannah started saying this, and I don't know where she learned it from. It's like a fear of snakes. Everyone's got it, and it's there for God's own purpose.
That's not
true. I don't
true.
understand
That's horrible.
how she came to
Horrible
this.
analogy.
Science, Neil deGrasse Tyson said is, I'm teasing. But there she was saying it. And I'm like, was this in a book she read? Was it on Puffin Rock?
Yeah.
No. It's just
It's
there.
instinct.
Yeah, Daddy, look at me. And so the author, of course, by transitive property, was taking it into the marriage that your wife is still that little girl. And not that you've become daddy per se, but you have...
You've become the key
become the
male
protector.
relationship
Yeah.
in her life.
Yeah. And so she also still wants to say that to you. Eric, look at me. Put your phone down. Whatever it is, right? And so that really hearkened to me. I mean, both things, right? It convicted me about how I'm doing now in the present with Tori, but also with Hannah. And not only joining in the fun of those moments, if I'm reading something or doing a chore or God forbid on my phone, and she comes in and she wants my attention. Am I really there? Does she see that I see her? But also that I find a tactful way to tell her how beautiful she is. And I appreciate what John said about Maria, about Maria's own sense of her beauty, that she recognized that it was not dependent upon her physical attributes, but that the spirit, that the Maria-ness made her beautiful. And that's a great encouragement, John. I think that's something that I want to take forward ahead with Hannah and invest in that. Because of course, her hair's pretty, she's got a nice smile, great eyes. Okay, great, fine. But also to ask her about those other things. Hannah, what makes you beautiful? I appreciate that a lot. So that's just one thing that really kind of resonated and resided with me as I was thinking about this topic, was that, Daddy, look at me. And I don't know if Dr. Meeker talked about it, but I would love to learn more about the ontology of that, where that's from.
Yeah. You're making this too easy, really.
Because it seems it's so deep-seated.
You're making it too easy to tie the book in. And obviously you guys don't need to read it because you're bringing up, without me talking to you about what was in this book, you're bringing up points from it perfectly.
Okay.
Yeah, she, again, in fairness to her, I have not finished the last 100 pages of it, so she may go back. But what you were just talking about pretty much hits on the first 3 chapters. Chapter 1 is, you are the most important man in your daughter's life. Chapter 2 is, she needs a hero. And chapter 3 is, you are her first love. And in all of those chapters, she's talking about just what you were saying, that your daughter just wanting your attention, your time, for you to notice her. And she makes an interesting point. She said that the reason the father has so much more pressure to do that right is that little girls tend to take their mothers for granted. They love them equally.
I see that.
But it's a given. They know their mom's there. They know their mom's going to love them. They know their mom is going to be the, just like Alice instinctually knows when Olive needs a snack and will already be preparing it before Olive asks. Dad, you're going to have to come tell me you're hungry probably before I start getting
several times at that. Yeah.
Yeah. So
how long have you been bleeding?
Exactly.
It's not I think that much blood.
So, I mean, that's maybe part of the ontology of it, is that all kids just take that mother relationship for granted, but the father one it's like, even though they don't know about the evils of the world and the ills of the world, you know, for the same reason, it's so much easier in a like unplanned pregnancy. The father's the one that can disappear easily, just poof, gone, you know, whereas the mother, you know, has to carry the child. And I think maybe there's something there. Even kids just know, like, hey, do you love me? Are you here? Are you here for the long haul? Are you part of my life? And then when you get into depending on different people's work schedules and who's home, who's not, and just how much physical time you have with your kid too, I think that's like, I work out of the home, Alice stays home, so my kids are starving for my attention a lot more because they've been with Alice all day. So when I come home, it's like, hey, you know, we want you now.
Something new, yeah.
Yeah. But what you said, Eric, about cultivating that with Hannah, this author talks about that a lot, of that our words don't even matter as much as our time and our actions, that putting in the time, just being there. And she said it doesn't have to be these grand things. She points out that a lot of dads have the mistake of thinking that they've got to plan these outings or big activities. And she said, that's not what is going to help your daughter know she's valuable as a person. Letting her be beside you while you're raking leaves, that is filling her heart just as much as if you're taking her on some big adventure, and maybe more. John, were you thinking something there?
I can see that a lot. You know, Maria is always asking to go with me when I go to the hardware store or I'm doing something. She'll often go with me in the morning when I've got to go set up at the church and stuff like that. And so I've been trying to be conscious of that and saying yes to her. And then when we have that chance, we're alone, like we might stop at Wendy's and get the 50-cent Frosty. And then on our way out, I'll say, was that a good date? And she'll say, yeah. And then I'll open the car door for her and stuff and let her get in. But trying to model those things for her, you know, and be conscious of that. And you know, the nice thing is, while I'm trying to consciously, intentionally do those things, I'm also wanting to be present to the moment. I'm not just in training, or I'm not just practice mode with her. I actually want to be there. I want to be present to that moment and actually enjoy that, and not just be thinking, well, I'm doing my fatherly thing to help her be beautiful. I'm actually truly enjoying being with her. And what a wonderful experience it is as a father. One of the things, Eric, too, when you were talking about with our wives wanting to come out in that princess dress and say, look at me, Eric, or look at me, John, the way we respond to our wives and telling our wives that they're beautiful and cherishing our wives models for them too. So not only is it good for our marriage, but it's also good for both our children and our sons get to see you should honor and cherish a woman in your life. There's a gentleman I've mentioned before, Josh McDowell. He's got a bunch of stuff on parenting. And I don't know that I agree with this, but one of the things that he said is that whenever his children came up to him and said, Daddy, Daddy, and interrupted, he said he always stopped with the adult and said, excuse me, I need to spend a moment with my child. He would talk with his child and then go back to his conversation. And his point was, when you do that, you teach your child that they are the most important thing in the world. You're here talking to pastor, or you're talking to the senator, and your child comes and they are an adult. They can understand that interruption. Whereas your child, if you say, I can't talk to you right now, they have no ability to comprehend it. Now, I would be a little worried about this, because I don't want my children to be entitled either and to think that they always have the ability to interrupt. But it's been a challenging idea for me, because I think about that quite a bit. Today, I'm out working on our deck, and Michael comes and says to me, Daddy, can you come push me in the swing? And I said to him the words, I don't have time right now. And that's become a big no-no for me. I'm not allowed to say that to my kids. I don't have time. Because that's what they hear. That's what seeps in then, and so this kind of resonates with our daughter discussion here is how are we telling them by the way we spend time with them, by the way that we, when they give us those requests to read a story with them, and I get a lot of those little requests, read a story with me, rake leaves with me, do those things as the author talked about. That's where most of Maria's wanting my time or the other kids are wanting my time is just doing little things. I got to work those in, even if it's just for a few minutes. How long would it have taken me to go on over to the swing set, given Michael an underdog, and then go back to working on the deck? It would have been nothing, and I wouldn't have said those awful words. I don't have time for you. And so, just filling into those two pieces that both of you are saying there.
That's really convicting, because I'm bad about that. I get in the mindset that my most important goal is for my project to get done, or
absolutely, and I'm doing it for my children. So exactly, that's the thing is, I'm working on the house, or I'm building your bunk bed, or I'm doing this for you. But that does not.
So then we justify it, yeah.
Yeah. I'm not sure about the whole interruption thing, but it was a convicting point to me. The concept of letting your child know that they are important, more important than anything else, and of course they are. They're more important. I just don't want to have spoiled, entitled children either.
No, I'm with you on that. Probably a healthy balance in it, because see, I'm too far the other way. I've gotten in a bad habit of erring on the side of teaching the kid to never interrupt. Well, when two adults are talking, you don't interrupt, you wait your turn. But I could definitely stand to soften on that, because that is a very convicting point about what is that teaching your kid about their value as a person, that, well, I'm not worth their time right now.
Rationalize out the good point that you want them to learn respect and to be patient and all those things, but they can't grasp that yet. So there's got to be a healthy balance there where you're not turning your child into a living monster, but at the same time,
I wanted to touch too, going back on the whole beauty, the superficial beauty part of it, and like what you said about Maria being self-conscious of her smile, and Evie's gone through phases. She has red hair, and she's gone through phases of feeling unique and loving it to hating it because all the other girls have brown or blonde hair, and so there's on the looks issue of it, and talking about the actions speaking louder than words. This author did have an interesting point, and again, it put so much kind of pressure to get it just right, I guess, but of walking a fine line between making sure you tell your daughter that she's pretty, but being very careful that superficial comments are not the only kind of comment you give them. Because she was talking about the danger there, and even if they are truly beautiful, I mean, by anyone's standards, not just by their parents, that if they start to internalize, well, all of these people like me, and what they like about me is my looks, well, then if something were to ever happen where their looks change, whether
which
they
get
will. Acne as a teenager,
all beauty is fleeting and fading.
Yeah, I mean, whether it's acne as a teenager or weight gain or whatever the case, well, then all of a sudden their self-worth instantly disappears as well, because they even if they don't know it consciously, subconsciously, they've learned people love me because I'm pretty. And I was thinking, just, even if the parent controls that, our girls from birth, you take two little redhead girls out, and strangers, and this is not me trying to brag, just talking about the problem, how big of a problem it can be. Strangers in the grocery store just stop and talk about how beautiful they are, and oh, look at these beautiful girls. And then that actually had crossed my mind a few times, even before reading this book, of like, man, they're hearing this a lot from people. I'm wondering if they're going to get the wrong idea about what makes them special, So that's a
physical beauty is a good. There's nothing wrong with that, and it's a superficial society that either elevates beauty as the most important thing, but it's also a superficial society that takes away all beauty and says, well, physical beauty isn't a value either. That's not true. There is beauty and there's goodness in in physical beauty. It's a very simplistic, approach to beauty, So it is something that should be celebrated, but as we've said over and over again, of all the beauties that your child possesses, it's the least important. But there's nothing wrong with celebrating it. Just like if my child had a musical talent, I should celebrate that. And even if my other child has no musical talent, it's okay. We all are a lot of different amounts, and whether that's fair or not, it's how it is. And there's nothing wrong with admiring somebody's physical beauty or their talents or their abilities, as long as that doesn't become the sole source of their personal value. And I think that might be a worthy point for us to say. There are a lot of women out there that didn't have fathers that appreciated them, that didn't have fathers that bestowed upon them a value to their person. And that's wrong, because you are beautiful. You are amazing. And it's not because of your physical attributes or even your skills, but it's because you are a daughter of God. You are an incredible creation by God. And so, all fathers are lacking, and all human fathers are going to be broken and failures. And you'd mentioned the idea of us being heroes. I also have made an intentional choice when I screw up to say, Maria, I did this wrong. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Or if mommy and I fought, say, I was wrong. Mommy and daddy are not perfect, because I need my daughter to also know that I am not enough. I will never be the hero. No matter how good I am, I'll never be the hero she really needs. And that is only found in God. And so for women out there that might not have had a father that bestowed upon them what he should have, you have a heavenly Father that super abundantly wants to pour that love out on you and cherish you and let you know that you are loved. And so that would be the final piece that we should say with our daughters, besides talking about just physical beauty and inner beauty and character beauty. There's a Father that's even greater than me, and together we can love that Father, and that Father is what really gives us our value and beauty.
That's a great point, yeah. And I don't know what this author thinks about it, but I think she's going to get to that, because one of the later chapters is titled "Teach Her Who God Is."
Oh, good.
So I'm interested to see, if her points kind of tie in with what you're talking about there, because that's a exceptional point to make.
Well, as we've been talking, I ran over to Amazon and grabbed the link. And so if you're listening on YouTube, just drop down to the description box, and the link to the book or to the Amazon page is right there. You can read a bit, preview it a bit. Otherwise, you can pick up a copy for yourself. Of course, check with your public library too, and you can put in a request there perhaps. But Ben, you would say, even though you're not all the way through, you would give this book your recommendation.
Oh yeah, just even the first, I think I'm about 125, 130 pages in. It's
sure.
If you just read that and stopped there, it would be worth your time.
All right.
It's been you may find some of it kind of like that deep down common sense knowledge. We've all heard that girls who don't have good relationships with their fathers tend to be more likely to have sex at younger ages, seek that missing love in all the wrong places from guys. We've all heard that before, and this is kind of just a more in-depth reiteration of that fact, and it's really driving home that is true. That is not a myth. That all the data backs that up as absolutely true. So, if as a father, one of the biggest things you can do for your daughter is be there and be present. She even goes so far, which I was very shocked in the culture we live in, very shocked to read this. She goes so far as to say that if you are a father who is in an unhappy marriage with your wife, she said she knows there are situations where this might not be possible. Say your wife, if your wife is the one that initiates a divorce and walks out on you, you can't really stop that. But, she said if it's anything even remotely possible to stick it out, she said, you stay with your wife until your daughter is grown. If you have to get out, then that's your choice. But she said, if you want to give your daughter a gift, stay in her life, throughout her childhood years, because again, studies back it up. the younger a little girl is when her dad leaves, the more chance she's gonna, run into trouble down the road. And I was shocked at that advice, a kind of a modern author saying, that divorce isn't
life isn't
always
just about the parents. You have to
right.
Might be
Yeah,
a sacrifice you have to make for your child.
Yeah, that it's not just about your happiness. And I was like, oh wow, this is refreshing in a way, But yeah, so long answer to a short question. I would definitely recommend it. It's been great, and I can actually I'll kind of sum it up. I'll just read the rest of the chapter. I love chapters like this in books where the chapter itself, you almost feel like you've learned something by reading the chapter title. Do you know what I mean?
Sure.
You can almost not even read the chapter, and you already take away something that you feel like it's strengthened you a little bit. So yeah, I already touched on the first ones. You're the most important man in her life. She does need a hero. You are her first love. Chapter 4 is teach her humility. And in that one, she says pretty much you do that by modeling humility. Protect her and defend her. I didn't mention this earlier. In parentheses, she has kind of a joking title there, use a shotgun if necessary. Chapter 6 is pragmatism and grit, 2 of your greatest assets. In that one, she goes into kind of just the God-given differences in the genders, and that men have that kind of inborn gift of being pragmatic and having grit, and that in today's society, that's trying to be kind of stamped out of us, like it's not appropriate or it's chauvinistic or whatever for us to just be to like give in to like kind of our manly wiring of our brain. But she said that's exactly what you bring to your household that your wife might not be able to provide is the grit and pragmatism to stick it out. If you got a teenage daughter that's bucking you really hard and like, well, all of my friends are going to the beach and wearing bikinis, and she said she's seen it time and time again. The wife might be the one that's willing to cave for her daughter's happiness there, but it's pull out your pragmatism and grit as a father and say, nope, this is not what's happening, And then chapter 7, a good one that kind of touches in with what the book you were talking about, Eric, of seeing your wife as a daughter. That your wife was, once a daughter and a little girl, but also what are you showing your daughter by the way you treat your wife? It is titled, Be the Man You Want Her to Marry. So again, just that title, I haven't even read this chapter yet, but that title tells me what I need to know. Like, am I treating Alice the way that I hope my daughter's future husband treats her, or do I fall short of that?
Sure. Yeah.
And then chapter 8, teach her who God is. Chapter 9, teach her to fight. I can't even hazard a guess. I don't know where she's going to go with that one, but
okay.
Okay. And then chapter 10, keep her connected. Also, that's a little more vague. Not sure where she'll head with that one, but it's been good stuff, and I'm looking forward to getting to those later chapters.
Wonderful. Well, there's Ben's Presidential Gold Star AAA Award recommendation. Very good. Well, and Ben, it was a real treat to have you back for this, man. We definitely waited.
Yeah, it was fun.
For the right topic, didn't we, John?
Absolutely. When we let them get ripe like this, we can squeeze them for all the juice that's in there.
That is a way to say it. Yes.
I was hoping I'd still remember how to form a sentence and plug a mic up, so hopefully I did.
Well, we haven't figured out how to form a sentence, so you're in good company.
Well, this has been the Catholic Forge. Thank you for listening. And we'd like to close, as always, with a prayer and a blessing. May God the Father,
and God the Son,
and God the Holy Spirit bless you, guard you, and lead you to eternal life. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Thank you for listening to the Catholic Forge. We hope you've enjoyed this episode and will leave us a positive rating and review wherever you listen. How about 5 stars for dynamite daughters in our lives? Man, they are fantastic. They've not all been together. Almost. They have one degree of separation.
Yeah, they've never all been in the same room.
Almost. Someday. You can help out the show in a big way by sharing it with your friends and your family. As always, you can continue the conversation with us on Facebook and Twitter, and to get a hold of us, you can reach us at thecatholicforge@gmail.com. For more information regarding the podcast, visit our website at www.thecatholicforge.com. We especially thank the beautiful mothers of our beautiful daughters for their continued support of this project, and we thank you very much for listening.